the edge of the waking woods. People in the village said the forest began where the last lamp flickered from the square and swallowed the cold breath of the evening. They spoke in whispers, as if the trees were listening to every word and repeating it back with a rusty rustle. At the edge of that forest lived a boy named Kian, 12 years old, with questions in his pockets and a stubborn light in his eyes. He had learned to walk quietly, to listen to the wind as if it were a restless teacher, and to trust his heartbeat when the world felt too big to fit inside him. Kian's father had vanished years ago, drifting into the forest after nightfall with a pocket watch that wouldn't keep time and a map that never showed the way out. People said the forest had eaten him, or that he had run away to a better life where the trees kept their promises. But Kian didn't believe either story. His father had promised that the forest hid not just danger, but truths, and Kian wanted to know those truths more than he wanted to stay indoors, where the lamp oil never failed and shadows stayed polite. On a morning of pale gold and quiet air, Kian stood at the edge and looked inside. The woods breathed in slow, patient cycles. A squirrel paused on a branch as if it too were listening for orders from the world beyond the trunks. The ground was soft with moss, and the air smelled of rain that hadn't fallen yet, and of something old, like a memory that remembered itself. Kian carried the compass his father had carved from oak, the one gift that felt both heavy and hopeful in his pocket. The compass was old, crusted with a thin layer of rust along the rim, and it hummed a little whenever Kian touched it, a low purr that sounded almost like a whispered hello. The north point was a needle that didn't always point north anymore, but toward a place the boy believed existed somewhere deep, perhaps at the heart of the forest, where his father might be waiting or watching or simply moving through the same wooden world, still and patient as a sunbeam. He stepped onto the forest's edge, and the world narrowed. The trees stood like guardians who forgot to blink, their leaves muffling the sky into a green dusk. A brook crooned softly to him, as if the forest were talking to itself, to the weather, to the rain that would come someday. Kian took a breath that tasted of pine and something sweeter, old resin perhaps, or a memory dusted with honey. The path did not look like a path for a boy to walk alone. It curled between roots that looked like sleeping snakes. It slipped under low branches that brushed his hair with chilly fingers, and it opened into meadows of ferns that refused to be stepped on without a rumor of fear flitting through them. The forest did not hurry him, and so he did not hurry either. Not long after, a sound found him, the soft, deliberate tapping of a stick against something hollow. He turned and saw a crow perched on a fallen trunk, one eye bright as a bead of black glass, the other eye wrapped in white feathers that made it seem both wise and lonely. It watched him with a patient calm that felt almost like mercy. "Hello," Kian said, though he did not know why the word felt sufficiently brave. The crow did not answer with words. It hopped closer, tilting its head as if listening to a language that lived in the wind and in wood and in the small tremor of a boy's breath. Then it spoke, not with beak and throat, but somehow with the air itself, a voice that was there in the space between them, not in actual words, but in a way that a thought might speak to another thought, quiet and precise. "You are not yet ready to leave here, child, but you will be. If you want to pass, you must listen as well as see." The crow spread its wings in a slow shimmer of black and white, and then hopped away, guiding him with the certainty of a signpost that never lies. It flew to a spot where ferns pressed around a hollow log, as if someone, something, had chosen to rest there once and forgot to move on. Inside the hollow log, a small mirror rested on a pile of moss. It was no larger than a hand, rimmed with silver that had gone a little dull with age, and in its surface, the boy saw not his own face, but a tower of flickering images. Faces of people he did not know, colors he could not name, and the pale glow of something far away. The mirror did not show him where he was. It showed him what the forest wanted him to learn if he wanted to keep stepping deeper. He reached for the mirror and paused. The forest did not demand fear exactly, but it did ask for honesty. The thing that flickered up from the glass was a memory, his mother's gentle voice, the sound of rain tapping the roof of their small house when the lights flickered, a night when his father left the map by the door and whispered, "If you ever doubt, you listen." The memory felt like a soft blade against his heart. Kian dropped his eyes, a quick swallow moving through him. He had always believed that fear was something to outrun, something to slam against with a brave face. Now he wondered if fear could be a teacher, if listening to fear could make him stronger than his own stubborn wish to prove himself. When he looked up, the forest seemed to have changed its clock. The greens shifted to a deeper hue, the air grew cooler, and a path that had not been there before began to wind through the trees, a route marked by tiny lanterns that hung from branches like patient fireflies. The lanterns did not glow with flame, so much as with a pale, almost translucent light that did not illumine the ground so much as reveal its truth. It was as if the forest wanted him to see what he would be leaving behind and what he would be carrying forward. Kian began to move again, slower this time, listening, watching, letting the forest speak in textures rather than words. The compass in his pocket grew still, and for a moment he worried that it had stopped working, that the forest's magic would swallow his will and replace it with fear. But then the compass warmed against his hip, a quiet press of reassurance, and he followed the lanterns deeper into the woods. He came to a clearing where the trees bent their trunks inward, forming a circle as if to enclose some memory. In the center stood a stone well that seemed ancient beyond counting. Its rim was dark with damp, and around it the ground was ringed with mushrooms that glowed faintly, not with yellow or white, but with a shy blue that suggested a quiet rumor of night. The well looked as though it had slept for centuries and would wake only if someone true asked it a question. From behind him, the crow's wings whispered again, and the bird settled on the well's rim, watching Kian with that single, brilliant eye. "Beyond here," the crow seemed to say, "you will meet a voice that belongs to the forest and to your father both. Do not fear it. Do not answer it with bravado. Answer it with truth." Kian knelt by the well and pressed the compass to his lips, a silent benediction to the memory of his father. He whispered the questions that had been climbing inside him since the day his father disappeared. Why did you leave? Where did you go? Will I ever be sure you are safe? The questions did not crash into the well like stones. They drifted, like moths, and settled around the water's surface, and then something began to stir within the depths. The water did not ripple so much as it breathed. A pale face rose, thin, with eyes that held the kind of sorrow that seems older than time itself. It was not his father's face, exactly, but one that belonged to him, to the forest, to the memory of all the nights when a boy learned to listen instead of shouting for answers. The face spoke without moving, a soft, echoing sound in his chest, more than a sound in his ears. "Child of the edge," the voice said, not from a mouth but from the space around him. "You have found your courage not by running, but by listening. The forest does not take you. You join it by telling the truth you hide in your pocket." Kian swallowed and steadied his breath, which trembled at the corners. "I am not afraid of the forest," he said into the still air, but the words came out thin, almost a sigh. "I am afraid of losing what I love, my father, and the peace we once believed we could share with this place." The face in the water tilted, a moment of reflection, then settled again. The well's surface brightened faintly, and in that glow, Kian saw the path back to the edge of the forest, not a road, but a memory of roads, a map that would appear only to those who truly meant to walk it. The voice spoke once more, softer now, like a whisper carried on a breeze that had learned to listen. Your father stands not outside you, but beside you in this test. The compass will guide you to the edge, but the choice to leave the forest or stay with it belongs to your own heart. The forest does not trap brave travelers. It folds them into its own weather of patience and time. When the voice was still, the crow cawed softly, as if agreeing. Kian stood, pocketing the compass once more, and took the longest breath he had ever taken in his small life. He did not rush for the exit, nor did he linger in fear. He simply walked, step by careful step, toward the edge of the clearing and the lantern light of the forest that felt less like a trap and more like a companion. The trees grew thinner as he moved outward, and the air took on a different sort of brightness, the kind that comes when dawn is not far off. The forest's whispers had shifted into a rhythm, like someone tapping a quiet drum with a patient hand. It remembered his father as surely as it remembered him. When he finally stepped beyond the last tree, the world opened to him again in a gentle, ordinary way. The village lay not far away, smoke curling from chimney,